It's Maple Sumo, the Great White North's guide to the dojo. I'm your Gyoji Josh, calling the matches as I see them. If you disagree, feel free to call a Mono-E on our Discord server at maplesumo.com. Welcome one and all to Maple Sumo. I'm your host Josh, and we're here for our inaugural Banzuke Breakdown episode. What is the Banzuke? Well, it's the list of all of the wrestlers and their positions that's released 1 week before the start of every sumo tournament, or Basho. We're going to be releasing an episode to follow the Banzuke release every tournament going forward, and in that episode we'll go over how the wrestlers are ranked, any surprise changes, how they performed last Basho, and what we expect from them coming up. But in this first episode, I wanted to spend a little bit more time introducing some of the cast of characters to you. Sumo to me is not just a sport and not just entertainment, but there's a rich history and tapestry of relationships and complications that are core to the enjoyment of the sport. You know, you have your heroes that you follow throughout their results in any other professional sport, through their injuries, through their personal struggles, and some of the deep web of interconnected issues really make this tapestry of sumo life and the sport itself come alive, and that's what drew me to it. You know, the first full Basho that I watched had this overall storyline that, you know, first of all, I was introduced to wrestlers that I just liked based on their personality. Wrestlers like Nishikiki, who I saw on the Jungyo tour with, you know, you see him on the dohyo and he looks like your regular formidable wrestler, and then he gets off the dohyo and he's a glasses wearing nerd like the rest of us. You see a guy like Tochinoshin, who was this absolute forklift of a man who had a unique preferred move that he would use on people, just using raw physicality to pick people off the ground and walk out of the ring with them. And then in that particular Basho, there was the storyline of Tamawashi, one of the sport's Iron Man wrestlers who hasn't missed a single match in years. I think right now he's number 3 in the all-time ranks of Basho without missing a single fight, without withdrawing for any injury, still going, and he's nearly 40 years old. At the time, he was a couple of years younger, and during that Basho, his first son was born, and he wound up winning the whole thing on the day his son was born. It was just a magical moment. You know, this winning a Basho is something that a wrestler aspires to over their entire career. They might only do it once. He's been lucky enough to do it twice, and some people who reach the pinnacle of the sport will win it 10 times or more. But even just getting there once is something that, you know, years later I'd see another wrestler manage to win it from the lowest rank of Megashira. No one had done that in maybe 100 years. And he wound up winning the whole tournament, and just the flood of emotions out of him from people who are normally stoic was just, it gripped me, and I've never been able to put down the sport since. So I want to hopefully impart some of my passion into you through introducing you to people that, through no fault of their own, I may view as sort of heroes and villains in this story. I mean, like pro wrestling, these guys are taking on assumed names that wind up becoming, to my mind, sort of characters for them to inhabit. And then through their actions and their social media and the way they interact with the Sumo Association and other wrestlers, you get a much bigger picture of who they are as people, and that makes them even more endearing to you. So we'll start from the start of the list, and I'm only going to go over in depth the top division, the Makuuchi division. I will briefly touch on the second division, the Juro division, with a couple of notable people there who I've been watching for a while that are down in this slightly lower rank right now, still salaried, but not as prestigious as the Makuuchi. Just kind of touch on them. We can expect to see them come back up in future tournaments. And then I'll give you one update on a fan favorite wrestler as well. So starting at the top, we have the Sanyaku ranks. So these are the 4 named ranks in the Makuuchi division, starting at the very top, who are our Yokozuna. So there are 2 Yokozuna currently. The first, Yokozuna East, is Hoshoryu. Hoshoryu is, to my mind, somewhat the hero of the sport right now. He's a Mongolian wrestler who has a very, fundamental grappling style without being one of the biggest guys out there. Now, Hoshoryu's past is tied to his uncle, Asashoryu, who was the first Mongolian Yokozuna. Now, if you dig into what happened with Asashoryu, he was an incredible wrestler, had a real fury and violence of a style, but through a combination of his attitude and some of his actions, wound up being forced to retire due to a injury scandal. And some say it was very premature. He could have been one of the greatest of all time. He does have I think he's in the top 5 for all time tournaments won. And his style, I have not seen that level of vigorous brutality in someone before. Hoshoryu is completely different. He's controlled, he's restrained, he fights with a inevitability and a calmness. Now, there is strength there, don't get me wrong. You can see in times when he has to fight back against someone who's trying to take over the match from him in the way he roots himself and imposes his will. But he's also had to struggle against very pointed criticism from his uncle on social media and in person, who has refused to let him excel and be his own person without trying to remind everyone that, hey, I was actually here first and I'm super good at the sport and I'm going to be super critical of how you wrestle. Never mind the fact that, there's only been 75 Yokozuna of all time ever, and his nephew got there of his own merit. It's not like his uncle was a coach. His uncle didn't, hand him wins or anything to get there. He had to earn the toughest spot in the entire sport, but he's still going to sit there and be critical of how he does it. So we love Hoshoryu. He's been struggling with a right knee injury. Still went 10-5 last tournament, but hopefully he's had some time to. The biggest problem with sumo is that these wrestlers rarely get true breaks to focus on recovery and their health, and it causes a lot of long-term issues, a lot of early retirements. But when you get a little bit more flexibility as the Yokozuna, you can take some time off without too much criticism. Famously, Kaseno Sato took off an entire year due to a pectoral injury that he never recovered from. Now, he wound up retiring after some, half-hearted performances, but there's a whole other story to go into about his drive to be one of the first Japanese Yokozuna in years, and the fact that the irony of what it took to get him the position also cost him the rest of his career. But regardless, Hoshoryu, he has a style of sumo that doesn't lend itself to a lot of injury, so he should have had some time in the last couple of months to retire. But I guess we'll see. The other Yokozuna, Yokozuna West Onosato, relatively new Yokozuna, but has made a big impact. He won, I believe, 4 tournaments last year. He's also fighting against injury, but Onosato is a physical presence that no one else on the dohyo has right now. Onosato has 2 inches and probably 100 pounds on Hoshoryu, and he has a bad left shoulder injury right now. It was bad enough that, you could see last tournament, if it got pushed on, he was wincing in pain, but he still got 10 wins. This guy is essentially a force of nature, and it's going to be very hard for anyone to compete with a full-strength Onosato. So I wouldn't put him in particularly a villain category. He's got a baby face for sure. We love Onosato working his way up, but we'll have to see if he's managed to have the time to recover. So, sitting right below Yokozuna are our Ozeki, our champions. So, I'm going to talk about the West Yokozuna first, the West Ozeki first, just because he's not as interesting to me, and I don't really care what happens to him. Kotozakura. Kotozakura had a very middle of the road tournament. He maintained his rank with an 8 and 7. One thing to note about Ozeki is that these begin the ranks where you can, if you don't win, you start losing rank. Yokozuna, you can never be demoted. Ozeki gets something a little bit different. They get the Kadoban system. So you can lose, you can have a losing record in a tournament, and you won't get immediately demoted. If you have 2 in a row, you move out of that Ozeki rank, which is tough to achieve. You have to win 33 matches in 3 tournaments to get promoted from the Sanyaku. But once you're there, you can stay there for quite a while. He's been the world's most middle of the road Ozeki for his entire tenure, which is unfortunate. I lovingly refer to him as Quad Boob, and you will know why as soon as you see him. But he's got a deep family history. His I believe was his grandfather was a Yokozuna under the same name, Kotozakura. And he's been good, not great. He's been consistent enough to get to Ozeki, but now that he's been at Ozeki, he's been just consistently enough to stay there, but not enough to win tournaments or make any big splashes. He's young and fundamentally sound enough to eventually run over people if he can deal with some of these ongoing knee issues he's had, but he's just right now he just looks like a guy who's just sort of coasting. And I hope that's not mentally true. He is surrounded right now by some of the strongest competition I've seen in the sport in a while, but he's not doing anything to distinguish himself. So hopefully he gets things straightened out in the near future. So the other Ozeki, the big story for this tournament is our Ozeki East Ao Nishiki. So he comes from Ukraine. He's one of 2 Ukrainian wrestlers in the sport right now, along with his countryman Shishi. He has been storming up the ranks. He won the last 2 Yusho, which would have earned him promotion to Yokozuna if he was at Ozeki when he won the first one. So he won with a 12 and 3 record in a playoff, which is awesome and means that if he gets a win or a equivalent performance, which is nebulously defined, but that's the JSA for you, he will get promoted. And I believe he would be the first Caucasian Yokozuna to ever happen in the sport. That being said, it seems like a bit of a long shot, but everything he does seems like a long shot, and he keeps succeeding. His worst record in the Makuuchi in the last year was 11 and 4. He keeps improving, and he comes in with this incredibly low stance that you think is just going to get him tipped over, and it never does. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I think his biggest hurdle right now is a full strength, full recovery Onosato. I don't know of anyone else who really causes him concern, other than just things happening. I don't know if there's anyone else in those ranks right now that's going to give him a true test. So I'm excited to see what he does. Who knows? He might have partied too much following his win. This happens to Ozeki. But I believe in this man and his focus. I mean, he's young still. He was born in 2004, so he's only 22 right now. He escaped the war in Ukraine and has overcome huge amounts of adversity to acclimatize to Japan and to shoot up the ranks the way he has. So I'm pulling for him. I want him to win this tournament, but the ball's 100% in his court right now. So coming next to the Sekiwake, at Sekiwake East, we have Kirishima. Kirishima is a former Ozeki who had to drop through the ranks due to injury. That being said, he seems fully recovered now. He had his, with the last tournament, he had his second straight 11 and 4 record, which earned him the Fighting Spirit Prize. And if he has another performance like that, it's quite likely he'll go right back to Ozeki. There is some, I don't want to call it prejudice, but some preferential treatment that happens with former Ozeki and qualifications to regain it. One notable one being if, due to the Kadoban system, you drop down to Sekiwake, they kind of refer to it as casually as an Ozeki Wake, where if you get 10 wins in that first tournament you drop down, you'll immediately go back to Ozeki. Kirishima was a good Ozeki. This is going to be one of the sort of key subplots for this tournament, is seeing if he can regain the rank. He's not quite 30 years old yet, so he's still got a good amount of time left in his career. You'll notice a big difference between like young up and comers and then like the mature wrestlers versus, you know, the older guard, I guess. He's kind of in his prime right now. There are two really good Yokozuna and a really good Ozeki knocking on the door promotion right now. But aside from those three people, he's probably better than everyone else in sumo right now. So I expect to see some really good matches out of him this time. Sekiwake West is an old fan favorite, Takayasu. Lovingly referred to as Papayasu. Takayasu is a half Filipino wrestler who officially hails from Japan. He had an 8-7 last tournament. This guy is a former Ozeki who he was called the Bear for quite a while as well. He is a hairy man, and he used to have this like big burly bear kind of grunt he would do before the match, but he's given that up since losing his Ozeki spot. He is 36 years old, still doing well despite, you know, his age, but he has never won a tournament, and he has been runner-up several times. And you'll see a repeated story with him as he starts the tournament super strong. 0-7, 7-1, or 7-0, 7-1, you know, 8-0. I've seen him start tournaments 10-0 and then 5 losses in a row. I don't know what it is, but it seems like something about the pressure gets to him and then he crumbles. So there's every tournament, there's always the, hey, could this be the one? I don't know if this positioning on the Basho is one that would be in favor. I think he needs to get that momentum through the early tournament and maintain it, but I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, 36 is late in your career to be winning a Basho, but I just want him to get one before he retires. Final rank in the Sanyaku is Komusubi. So in Komusubi East, we have the first of our Onami brothers, Wakamoto Haru. Wakamoto Haru, along with his younger brother, Wakataka Kage, and his older brother, Wakataka Moto, have joined sumo and had really interesting results, careers, trajectories. Wakamoto Haru and Wakataka Kage have both shot up and both been in the Sanyaku. Wakataka Moto, unfortunately, being the oldest brother, I think just wound up using a lot of his energy to make his younger brothers better. I don't think he's ever made it to a salaried rank. But these other two have done very well. Wakamoto Haru started rough last tournament at 0-5 and managed to turn it around and finish 8-7, and saved his rank at Komusubi. He is a scrappy guy. I don't want to call him a late bloomer, but he feels like someone who he shouldn't be here at 32, but like he also seems to have a lot of good years left. So I guess we'll see how he goes. He's been in and out of the Sanyaku at Komusubi for a while. I think he hit the peak of where he could rank, and I just want to see him perform decently again. Komusubi West is Atami Fuji. Atami Fuji is another guy that they are looking at as a possible future Ozeki, future even Yokozuna. His record last rank was 12-3 as well. He lost the tournament in a playoff to Aonishiki, but did take home the Fighting Spirit Prize. What's incredibly impressive about this is that he started the tournament 0-2. And after that, his only losses were to Aonishiki. This guy beat both Yokozuna just by going back to really simple, straightforward sumo and basically just making his size everyone else's problem. The guy's 6'2", over 400 pounds. he can just do the most basic point A to point B sumo and get good results out of it. He is a fan favorite due to his baby face, and I just love watching him kind of gleefully bounce around the dojo like a toddler. And then coming down into the Megashira ranks. So at Megashira 1, we have Wakataka Kage, again, brother to Wakamoto Haru. He finished with a 9-6 last tournament. What I love about him and his brothers is that they both have this like classic strongman physique that just makes them look like they should be doing well in wrestling. He would have done much better in the last tournament if he hadn't had such a rough start against the Sanyaku ranks. And I think that's been his weakness in the past is not starting well against the top tier and then just tears apart the guys lower than him. He can hang with just about anybody except for like the top guys, and he's even a pain to them. But yeah, he's hopefully going to be a little bit more consistent going forward just for the next few years, but I doubt we'll see him any higher than, maybe a Sekiwake. I really don't see Ozeki in his future, but we just love watching two family members beat up on the rest of the ranks. So, Megashira West, number 1, is Yoshino Fuji. He won the Outstanding Performance Prize last tournament with an 8-7, but he has, in the last 4 tournaments, gone 11-4, 8-7, 9-6, and 8-7. He is knocking on the door of Sanyaku, and it's his first run up the ladder. He's so new to professional sumo that his hair hasn't grown enough yet to put the little ginkgo leaf in it. He dropped both Hoshoryu and Onosado, the Yokozuna, in January, so he can definitely hang with the big guys. But we're going to have to see if he can be consistent at his very best over the next 15 days to get into the named ranks. So, Maegashira 2, we have Fujinokawa. Fujinokawa is a guy that I don't know a ton about and have only been paying attention to for the last little while. He's still very young. Last tournament, he finished 10-5, which almost makes you forget that he only just turned 21. I mean, literally last week. So he is not only super young, he's also undersized for where he's ranked right now. This guy is 5'10", 268. Compared to everyone else in the top, he's giving up at least 50 pounds against the other wrestlers. Despite all this, he uses a more technical wrestling and, showed off some really surprising strength. I'm shocked he did not walk away with an Outstanding Performance Prize. But in a world where Ao Nishiki is just charging towards Yokozuna, we should not overlook how good this guy has been at such a young age. This guy has a long time left in sumo. If he's already doing this well, he could build off of that even further, adding on some more size and just seasoning himself against the rest of the competition. The other Maegashira 2 is Chirano Umi. Chirano Umi is the world's most boring sumo wrestler, but still has like a good record, despite just being like middle of the road. Like he's 5'10", so he's not particularly tall. He's 337, so he's not particularly big. And he doesn't do anything like surprising or spectacular. He's never a big contender. He's just like kind of always doing like, 8-7, 9-6, 7-8, 8-7. But what he does do is he doesn't beat himself. He has such good fundamentals that he just like lets other people kind of bounce off of him and make mistakes, and then he can just capitalize on that. So I don't expect anything spectacular out of him. He's gonna probably put in another 8-7 performance. He'll be maybe Maegashira 1 next tournament, or maybe just like Maegashira 2 East. Like, who cares? So Maegashira 3, Hirata Umi. Hirata Umi has the most kissable lips in sumo, packed onto a brick shithouse. He went 9-6 in January, and 8 of those were by Yorikiri. He is just an absolute ball of energy. His intensity is above everyone else, but originally it looked like he had trouble focusing, but now that he is focusing, he's just blasting his energy forward, which is sending people flying. That being said, he didn't face anybody above Komusubi last tournament, so we'll see if that intensity and energy can transfer into wins against better opponents. Maegashira 3 West is Oho. Oho is someone that I have turned the corner on appreciating. Oho is Sumo's Nepo baby. His grandfather was the legendary Yokozuna Taiho, at one point holder of the most tournament wins in his career. Oho looks like he should be a really good sumo wrestler. He's got the physique, the build. He's 6'3", 396. He had a terrible tournament in January. We went 4-11. He did beat Aonishiki and Kirishima, but something just didn't click. The thing was, good Oho and bad Ho-Ho look essentially the same. It's that he just doesn't know how to, if he can start the match ahead, then he closes out as good as anyone. But if he hasn't won a fight from the start, he does not know how to bring it back. He's been up in the Sanyaku. He's crashed back out again. Who knows? He could be back there in 1 or 2 Basho. It really just depends on which Oho shows up. I want to see him, like I said before, season himself. I mean, he's in his late 20s now. He's about 26. He should be a more mature wrestler than he is, but he still looks like a kid who's just gotten up there. So I'm rooting for him now, seeing that he does have some of the wherewithal on his own to actually win some of these, but I could go either way on him on any given day. So we'll see how he performs. Maegashira 4, I don't care about either of these guys all that much. I'll tell you what, and there's no good reason. Daisho is just a middle of the road guy. Hey, he's Maegashira 4 right now, East. Last tournament, Maegashira 4 East. His most noticeable thing is that he's got a little piggy nose that turns up. That's about it. Now, that means, in the last tournament, he started 1-6, which was awful, but he managed to turn it around by beating Hoshoryu on day 8, which was, insane. There's speculation that, he might still be recovering from an injury he had last July. But this is a guy he's been around a while. I expect to see him start falling in the ranks every tournament, but he still just manages to keep it going. Him and his little Ninja Turtle hands. So I don't know. Good for him, I guess. I just don't care. Maegashira 4 West, Takanosho. Takanosho, I don't know why. Years ago, I saw him fight, and the only thing that came to my head was Takanosho strong like tractor, and about as smart as one. He had a 5-10 last tournament. He got kicked out of, he got demoted so far he's not going to have to fight a lot of Sanyaku guys this time, which is good because he's just a base middle of the road pusher thruster. But when he fights against guys who are actually skilled at wrestling, that all just stops. So yeah, big strong tractor, push you back. As soon as you learn how to move a little bit, he's easy to beat. So I don't know. Again, just could not give a rip about that guy. Nice enough guy, I guess. But so we've come to our first true villain of sumo. At Maegashira 5 East, Abi. Abi, I will say this objectively, Abi is a successful wrestler. That doesn't mean he's good. Abi has a unique style called Abizumo. So in sumo, you get divided into one of 2 categories. You're a pusher thruster, or you're a belt guy who works on throwing people or tripping them. Abi takes both of his hands and puts them into your neck, and then just keeps pushing at your collarbone. Now he stands almost straight up to do this. If you can just deflect him to the side or get in close enough with him right off the hop, he's basically toast. But if you do let him do his thing, he winds up winning a lot. Last tournament, he picked up 10 wins, and for a while was like in the race for the Yusho. But years ago, he was the source of a scandal due to hazing and abuse on Instagram with sumo wrestlers. And I've kind of never forgiven him for that. That being said, he also just looks like a dick. He looks like a bully who's just there to like slap you in the face and quit hitting yourself, and then accidentally win a fight because you step back while trying to get away from him. I hate his style. I hate his wrestling. I kind of hate him. But the problem is I keep watching more and more videos online and seeing him interact with other wrestlers. It seems like he might be kind of a fun, chill guy. So I'm going to stop consuming content regarding Abi so I can keep hating him without feeling guilty. Kono Shoho at Maegashira 5 West is the former holder of the most kissable lips in sumo. Now, Kono Shoho is a bit of a mind boggler for me. This is a guy who stormed up the ranks and they were like, wow, this kid's got the skills. And then he just kind of got stuck and he floundered and he dropped and got injured and bounced up and down a little bit. His sumo never looks great. And then last July, he won the Yusho, like out of nowhere. His best is really good, but it just seems like it doesn't show up. He'll do just about anything, so they're fun matches to watch, but he only went like 9-6 last tournament, which, is respectable, but this guy is just so inconsistent that I can't recommend making him your favorite wrestler. At Maegashira 6, we have Ichi Yamamoto, another sweet babyface boy from Hokkaido. He was out of his element at Maegashira 1 last tournament. He went 4-11. He was rarely even in a match. He's been around quite a while. He has a plan. It's just he needs to be fighting against people who are more at his skill level, which is fine. They need rank and file wrestlers. He'll be fine to put in a comfortable 8-7. Don't worry about him. At 6 West, we have Onokatsu. Onokatsu is relatively unknown to me. He's a Mongolian wrestler. He's now gone 7-8 for 3 Basho in a row, but stayed at the same rank the whole time. Now, that being said, he only achieved that last tournament because he had back-to-back default wins due to wrestlers withdrawing, so that saved him from a real demotion, but he seems to be at a point where, like, this is his prime, and this is all he's got. He'll just be the middle of the pack forever, which is fine. Maybe he can improve. I doubt it. Maegashira 7 East is Oshoma. Again, another middle-of-the-road guy from Mongolia right now. He was a 7-8, which was actually a pretty big improvement after his 4-11 November. When I watch him fight, it seems like he always wants to keep the other guy a full arm's length away. But he's a push and slap down heavy guy. So he's, I guess, got a game plan, but he also once lost by Tsukite, which is an inadvertent hand touchdown, which is a like non-technique. He just like screwed up. So I don't know what to think of this guy. He doesn't blow my skirt up. He's later in his life. He's just, I think, just kind of a list filler. But at number 7 West, we have sort of the opposite situation. Number 7 West is Hakuno Fuji. If you don't recognize that name, which I don't know why I'm saying that because you shouldn't, is the former Haku Oho. He is currently in the middle of a pretty serious controversy. There's a scandal happening right now. Haku Oho, now Hakuno Fuji, is the former star pupil of the GOAT of sumo wrestling, Hakuho. He had a meteoric rise through the ranks and then ran into some shoulder injury trouble. And his stable ran into some management trouble. Violence in sumo is a ongoing problem, and his stable wound up getting, at first, placed under the guidance of Isegahama and eventually absorbed by Isegahama due to a violent scandal under the former Yokozuna Hakuho. One of their wrestlers was abusing, beating, and hazing younger wrestlers. Hakuho was too busy with his personal commitments and his, sponsorship deals and things like that to properly supervise what was happening at the stable. And when the JSA found out, they read him the riot act. He was demoted in his rank of sumo owner. He had his wages garnished. He was placed under the supervision of another stable. That endured for over a year with no light at the end of the tunnel for when he would get his stable back, and he quit. He left the JSA. Their winningest Yokozuna ever, who was one of the biggest ambassadors for the sport, quit the sport due to ongoing fights with the JSA, which were mostly based on a racism problem. There's a perception in the JSA that Mongolian wrestlers, which Hakuho was, are overwhelmingly violent. Now, I'm not going to say that there's a good foundation for this claim, but there was a Yokozuna, Haru Basho, who was forced to retire about a decade ago, maybe a little bit more, due to another violent scandal where he hit a wrestler, I believe, with a bottle at a club. It came out. He was forced to retire at the height of his career. One of his stablemates was another wrestler named Terunofuji. Terunofuji is now, after becoming a Yokozuna in his own right, as a Mongolian, a stable master at Isegahama overseeing Hakunofuji. And just this week it came out that he had an act of violence against Hakunofuji. From the reports, he threw a bottle at him while in a drunken rage at an event. Now, one of the big differences in this case is that Terunofuji actually went and self-reported to the JSA. Not only self-reported, but brought Hakunofuji and another wrestler, Nishiki Fuji, and said, hey, I want you guys to testify to them what happened. I'm going to be fully transparent what happened. I'm going to make a big apology to the stable. I'm going to put myself at their mercy. We don't know what's going to happen to them because the JSA has been very inconsistent with how they enforce discipline for violence incidences. The wrestler who was under Hakuho was forced to retire. Hakuho was put into a situation where he was demoted and wound up retiring. I don't know what's going to happen to Terunofuji. I don't think they're going to make him fully retire. They'll probably, I would say, demote him and garnish wages, but not put his stable under anyone else's supervision. That was I think, an insult directed straight at Hakuho in an effort to try to bring him in line with what they wanted. But Hakunofuji hasn't said anything at all, which isn't that untypical. He is still fighting a big toe injury that sort of stemmed from another injury to his knee. We don't know. Despite his good performance, injuries have been piling up at the top ranks, and so we'll see how he can, if he even shows up for this tournament. He's got a lot of good reasons not to, but last we've heard, he was 5-8-2 last tournament. Last we heard, he's still out of training because of his injury, but I want to see good things for this guy. He's broad, he's strong, he, I think, carries the legacy of Hakuho with him right now. So I hope that they can put this, what seems to be like I not to downplay violence in the sport, but this seems to be an isolated incident with that stable due to alcohol, which affects the best of us. But never mind all that heavy stuff. We are now going to talk about the hero of sumo, my personal favorite, Maegashira 8, Ura, in his distinct pink mawashi. So, Ura is not a big man. He's only 5'9", only 295, but what he is a technical wizard. That being said, 4-11 does not speak to a technical wizardry when it comes to your record, but his injury history combined with his dramatic brand of sumo means that he might not be aging super well. He still did win one match with a Katsukashi, and he lost one by Sakato Tari. Now, if you don't know what those are, he had basically a pulling arm bar throw thing. He's always trying something weird out there. He's not just, oh, just push the guy, oh, just pull the guy. Oh, he's always going for the most insane move he can at all times. Every minute you watch him is exciting. Even when he loses, he bounces off of the dohyo now. So I recommend everyone just pay attention to him and only him as much as you can, because you will appreciate what sumo can be when people can move. He's my favorite. He's been my favorite for a long time now. I have an Ura t-shirt somewhere that I'll have to break out for the next episode. But expect to see this man, no matter what happens, do something exciting. And on the other side of Megashira 8 West is Shodai, the Lord of Chaos. There is no better wrestler in sumo than Shodai. There is no worse wrestler in sumo than Shodai. Shodai does what Shodai wants. When he wants to, this man crushes the competition. He reaches the heights of Ozeki, and then he feels bad about it and goes on a losing streak because he considers the emotional impact on his opponents. This guy is not at his Ozeki best anymore at 32, but he's not going anywhere. He still can overrun everyone in the lower Maegashira, and he's definitely not Juryo material. He's gonna still brighten your day with the occasional beautiful performance, and then completely infuriate you by just sort of sadly wandering out of the ring. Oh, watching Shodai is just rolling the dice in the best way possible, and sometimes it's beautiful, and sometimes it's a tragedy. At Maegashira 9, we have Toki Hayate. Toki Hayate is a smaller guy, 5'10", 290, but he's got his third straight Kachikoshi. He can hang around as a Maegashira. It's hard not to think that, like, at his size, he's gonna have a ceiling somewhere, and I'm assuming at enough promotions that's gonna kind of expose his lack of skills, but for now, he's just a good filler guy who just keeps putting in, like, better than average performances. Speaking of better than average, Maegashira 9, Tamawashi, born in 1984. That's right, this guy is 42 years old in this tournament. He went a mere 5-10 last tournament, but that doesn't mean this guy doesn't have a follow-up tournament where he suddenly pushes through and goes 10-5 again. This guy, literally nobody has ever competed at Makuuchi at his age before. And he still competes with the best of them. Like, on a regular basis, this guy destroys people in the Sanyaku. He just won a second tournament not that long ago. I think it was like 39. There's no reason to think this guy's going anywhere because he just does not get injured. He does fundamental, straightforward sumo, and every once in a while throws someone across the ring. I don't know what more to say about Tamawashi other than it feels like he will exist in sumo forever. Maegashira 10, Gonoyama. He almost got a Makikoshi, almost got a Kachikoshi last tournament. He had to win his final day match. I hate these Darwin matches, but he has just an absurd bias towards pushing. He won 6 matches by Oshidashi, his 7th by Hataki Komi, and it seems that the way to beat him is just grab him. Just grab a hold, and then he can't do anything. I've seen this guy up, he was at what, Maegashira 1 not that long ago, but again, it's just pushing. That's it. He's been solved. Good for him staying in the managing to stay in the Makuuchi division even with the 7 and 8. But I'm not big on it. There are some people who were, oh, this guy's really great, like 6 months ago. I'm over it. I'm totally over it. At Maegashira 10 West, we have Roga. Now, Roga is the one Russian wrestler in the entire JSA right now. He's just kind of, unfortunately, mid-level, below 500. He is, like, weirdly enough, like the opposite of Gonoyama. He's a tall guy who just wants to grab you all the time. And he hilariously beat Gonoyama by Oshidashi in January. He's one of the, I don't know, the most notable thing about the guy is that he has chest hair, which is like, It's a kind of an anomaly in sumo that he has that much chest hair, but like he's Russian and he's kind of built like a bear a little bit, but like that's it. I don't love him. I don't hate him. He's just there. Maegashira 11, another man with chest hair, is Shishi. Shishi also hails from the Ukraine, like Aonishiki. He finished 9-6 last tournament, which is actually kind of disappointing because at day 10 he was 8-2. But as soon as he hit that tougher schedule in the last third, he just sort of cratered. He's tall, he's 6'4", and seems like he hasn't grasped how to be tall in this sport. I'm a tall guy, I'm 6'8", but I understand that the laws of leverage dictate that I need to get low, and he just does not know how to get low. He's starting to better learn how to use his length to keep people away from him, but he's not really doing anything with it. He gives up leverage, and he's just kind of like abusing his size to stay out of Juryo ranks. I don't know. He might not be able to do it against the top people, which doesn't really help anyone around him right now, but it's always nice to see a guy in the upper percentile of height doing well, at least for my sake. And then up opposite him at Maegashira 11 West is Oshoumi. He was on the edge of the Yusho race for like a long time last tournament. He wound up finishing 10-5. He seems to do just fine against anyone in the lower Maegashira, and I expect to see him move up more. He's still pretty young. He's only about 25. And given the record that he had last tournament, if he gets off to a fiery start, he'll keep finishing well and keep moving swiftly up the ranks. At Maegashira 12 East is Asakoryu. Asakoryu looks like he's much smaller than he is. He's now had 7 tournaments in this top division and is about 50-50. He's like 51-54. Now, he might stick around for a bit. I kind of like his sumo. Honestly, he's probably the most like muscular looking guy in the top division, despite only being 5'10". He's 271, so he fits into like what we would call like a Mighty Mike kind of package in sumo, which is still like bigger than average, but he likes to push people around with occasional throws, so he stays exciting. I hope he does better than 9-6, frankly. I hope he sticks around for quite a while, but he's in about the middle prime of his career. So if this is kind of what he can expect to do, I wouldn't expect to get too much more out of him. But speaking of too much more out of him, at Maegashira 12 is, West is Asanoyama. Asanoyama, the former Ozeki, the one time seemed like a sure lock to be the next Yokozuna, has had to climb back a lot. First, there was a scandal during COVID where he was breaking COVID restrictions to go to hostess clubs and then lied about it. And then they found out and beat his ass. And then he got injured and he dropped way down the ranks. Now, that being said, for the first week of the last tournament, he looked like he could be a contender. He wound up finishing 9-6. He's older. He's about 32 now. He might not have the gas. He's got a very... When I watch him wrestle, he's got a very hands-on, strength-based style. It's great to have him back, and if he gets his left on you, it's pretty much game over for most people still. I just don't think he can overpower the guys at the top right now, and that he can keep himself in the fight against the smaller, more nimble guys who are at the top of the ranks right now, who both have strength and the ability to get out of his grip. And then they can last in a longer fight. He seems to get winded now. But we'll see. He's a fan favorite still as well, so it's good to see him climbing the ranks again. And then at Maegashira 13, we're almost done. We only have 17 total ranks, but Maegashira 13 is another fan favorite, Tobizaru, the flying monkey. Now, I like Tobizaru. He was another family story. His brother was also a wrestler until about, I want to say 2 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, when he officially retired. Tobizaru is another small guy. He's 5'8". He had a kind of middling 7-8, which was nice after opening up 1-6, but he could rack up wins in this lower part because he, they call him a flying monkey. Sometimes he's a straight up gorilla. This is a guy who's got agility and earned that nickname by borderline jumping over people to get behind them and get some of those wins. But every once in a while, he just puts his knuckles to the ground and bowls over people. So I want him to stick around much longer. I love watching him fight now. He's not one of my favorite wrestlers, but I think he's great to have in the top division. So at Magashira 13 is a brand new wrestler, Fuji Seun. Now, I don't know much about him. He was a hotshot university wrestler a couple years ago, but he made it to Jurio and then kind of did nothing. He had some injury issues and stuff. He just kind of floated around. But what's interesting about him being promoted is that he is being promoted alongside of his stablemate, Fuji Ryoga. Now, this is the first time that two stablemate wrestlers have been promoted to Makuuchi for the first time in something like 15 years. So great job over there at Kumamoto Stable. Fujishima Stable. Kumamoto is where he's from. But Fujishima Stable promoted these two guys together. I'll briefly touch on Fuji Ryoga, who's much younger. He, as far as I can tell, he just kind of cruised through after graduating from university. He prefers Oshidashi, but is more of a blast the guy away kind of wrestler than parrying thrusts and slaps. But given how young he is, he's probably going to be around here for a while. So I guess just get used to him. At Magashira 14 is Chiyoshoma. Chiyoshoma is frustratingly middle of the pack. He is a Mongolian wrestler. He's gone back down to Jurio and come back up a few times. He's finished 6-9, which, if that happens again, he's probably back down to Jurio. He's 34. He's not getting any better. He's taken his citizenship test, which seems like he normally when that happens, it's a sign that he intends to become an elder and maybe looking to purchase elder stock. So who knows? Maybe he's lining up to retire. I find him boring. He's 6 foot, middle of the road. What's funny is that he's boring as a Mongolian. The Mongolians are incredibly dominant in the sport, and he's an average Mongolian, which also means that he's in the top ranks of the whole sport, which is so ironic to me that they only get a few of them. They all wind up being salaried ranks. So I won't be sad to see him go. I want more exciting wrestlers. The next one, Magashira 14, Nishiki Fuji. I only care about Nishiki Fuji because his name is so close to Nishikigi, who I love. He unfortunately had to withdraw on day 12 last tournament, so he went 6-3, but he didn't get any new injuries, which is good because as a guy who's just hit 30, he needs to watch out for. He's said he's been struggling in the past with recurring neck and back pain, but he relies on his speed and flexibility. So if he doesn't take the time to really rehab that stuff, he's not going to go much further. He hasn't been in the Makuuchi for very long, but I like watching him wrestle, and hopefully his testimony in this violent scandal helps Isegahama and Hokuto Fuji move forward, because he seems to be a pretty stand-up guy. And then at Maegashira 15 East, we have Midori Fuji. This is another one of our mighty mites. He is 5'9". I love his style. He has a signature under the shoulder swing down that he does. He wins with that move about 25% of the time. But now people are starting to figure out, just don't let him grab your arm to the forehead. He seems to lack a toolbox. He got just straight up thrown 3 times in his losses, which sucks for like, he's only 257, which I know, like, when you think about it as an average person, that's a pretty big guy. Nah, not at 5'9" in professional sumo. He's getting ragdolled out there. And if they're not letting him grab an arm anymore to try to twist them down, he seems like he lacks any other skills. As much as I love watching him fight, I would not be surprised if he's dropping down to Juryo next tournament. Speaking of dropping, what I consider to be a tragedy is Maegashira 15 Mitakeumi. Mitakeumi, former Ozeki, has been through hell in the last several years. Between a bad COVID infection that ultimately wound up costing him his Ozeki rank due to the ongoing effects, losing both of his parents. He's not even that old. This is a guy who shot up the ranks as one of the tadpole wrestlers along with Takakeisho. He's won, I think, 4 tournaments outside of being an Ozeki. And yet right now he just looks like a shell of his former self. Watching him walk is painful. I can only imagine getting up on the dough is worse for him. He's not even that old. He's only like 33, but like, I think this guy is just done. Which is sad. He achieved everything he wanted to in his career, but I wish he would have had more time in the spotlight once he did hit Ozeki. But such is the sport. At 16 East is Asahakuryu. He just barely survived last tournament, moved up 1 rank after getting an 8 and 7. And it kind of felt like he cheated because 2 of his 3 last opponents were Juryo. I mean, he's barely in there. We'll see what happens. I don't expect much out of him. Maegashira West Kinbozan had a disastrous tournament, 4 and 11. Kinbozan, the only wrestler from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan? It doesn't seem like anyone at the JSA knows how to pronounce this country. Hiro Morita, God love him, full of energy, tries his hardest, has called it Kazakhstan every single time it's come out of his mouth for what feels like the last decade. Now, this guy at 6'5", 385 is one of the few Rikishi in the top ranks who can use his size basically against anyone, but he's still trying to figure it out. He's big, he's athletic, but he's like a kid who just had a growth spurt. He doesn't really know how to use that size and how to move in it. So I hope he can sort of put 2 and 2 together. He's not the youngest guy out there. He has just been kind of consistent. It's good for him for getting to the top rank, but he's been very inconsistent. If he can't figure out a way to like lock in, I don't see him staying there much longer. We've already been over Maegashira 17 Ryoga, so I will just briefly touch on Maegashira 17 Kodo Eho. This guy is a mystery to me. He's young, he's back in Makuuchi, he's not really spectacular, he has good athleticism, but he's still only 22, and right now, I think he deserves to be in the top 50, but who knows where his potential lies. This guy's got time to grow, and I want to see what he does from the bottom rank against guys that are either on their way up with him or on their way down. So that's the entirety of the Makuuchi division. Those are the top 42 wrestlers in the sport right now. I want to briefly touch on a couple of notables from the Juryo division. Juryo is the 2nd rank of sumo that still earns a salary, but is less prestigious, I guess, than the Maegashira. They have a separate structure to their tournament, so you won't see them interact much with the Makuuchi division other than the occasional trip up for the top ranked wrestlers to try to fight some of the lowest ranked ones in Makuuchi as sort of a pretext to what might happen at the end of the next tournament. But down in Juryo right now, we have Ryuden and Sadano Umi at rank 1. They are both long-term staples of Makuuchi. Ryuden, I feel like, is at the end of his career, and good riddance. This guy had a scandal with cheating on his wife a couple years ago and just a bunch of other BS. I can't stand the fella. I want him gone. Sadano Umi, just a boring dude. He's just a boring middle-of-the-road dude. He's been around for a while. Don't need him anymore. Down lower in the ranks here, We have Meisei at Jurio 7. He is kind of a fan favorite, and he just had an awesome wedding like a week ago. I'm surprised to see him this far down, but I think injuries have been plaguing him right now. I'd like to see him come back up. He's a good friend of Yokozuna Hoshoryu, so hopefully they can work together to bring him back into the race, but he's been around a little bit longer. He's a little bit older. Tamashoho is Sumo Dad Bod. I love him for just being a guy. He gets wins. He's in the salaried ranks, but he straight up looks like your best friend's dad who just wandered into the gym. That's the most memorable thing about him, in that he's so unmemorable. His body is just a guy. Just a guy. And then I've mentioned him before, but on Maegashira 12, it's Nishikigi. Nishikigi, the lovable, dorky geek of sumo, at one point was a real contender, dishing out losses to Yokozuna like Kakuryu. You know, he hit a high of Komusubi, won a lot of special prizes, but I feel like he is just waiting his time out. He obviously, you know, sumo wrestlers don't always have a great plan for what they're going to do with their lives after they retire. I don't think Nishikigi plans on staying in the JSA. He's just trying to get as many salary checks as he can before he pieces out, which I totally understand. The guy's been in this sport for 15 years, at least. I mean, at what point do you really say, enough's enough, I'm going to take this pile of money and go start my new life? Speaking of people who are trying to take a pile of money and start a new life, I'm going to briefly touch on Makushita. Nobody cares about Makushita except for one guy. Makushita, number 4 East, Enho. Enho is the smallest man in sumo, I think, right now. He is 167 centimeters tall and 106 kilograms, which is incredible because for a long time, he could not break 100 kilograms. He was the definition of mighty might. But he was also Hakuho's, I want to say, favorite disciple. This guy owes his entire career to Yokozuna Hakuho. He is one salary tournament away from qualifying to purchase Elder Stock. He had a neck injury that knocked him way down the ranks a couple of years ago, and he's been fighting his way back just to get that one tournament. If he can get a winning record in this tournament, I think he will automatically be promoted to Jurio. If he gets better than average, 5-2 or 6-1, he's a lock. I want to see this guy get his one more salaried tournament so that he can buy Elder Stock and retire. He's obviously going to stay in sumo for a long time as a great coach, just like some of his mentors. And I think it does everyone a disservice to hide his skill this far down the Banzuke. Go look up his fights. You're going to see him throw guys 3 times his size and then also get picked up by Tochinoshin like a baby and walked out of the ring. Everything that you want to see as far as athleticism and skill in sumo, this guy has in spades. The only thing he doesn't have is lifting insoles and another 50 pounds of weight. So good on him. I hope to see him promoted for this final, what should be his final active tournament. But we're all cheering for him. If he loses, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably just going to cry for a week. But that's everyone I wanted to touch on as far as the top division and notable characters from the world of sumo. There are some other people that might pop in and out here and there. I will bring up different storylines over the course of the coming tournament here. Obviously, we're going to be going over the day's results every day with just a quick recap. But as we transition between tournaments, we're going to be going over both the history of sumo, sumo news as it comes up, and maybe diving more into some of the notable figures from the past that have and don't have controversy surrounding them. But thank you for checking out our first episode. Check us out at maplesumo.com, and I will see you at the Basho. Maple Sumo is a no-plot-only lore production. Check out our other podcasts at noplotonlylore.com.